addiction. What does it look like? That's a big question, because addiction to me has been what I've learned now from recovery my whole life. I had things happen to me when I was younger. Now, what I believe addiction is a trauma-based illness. Some people think you're born with it, all this and all that. That could be true, I don't know. But all I know is from what happened to me as a child and the circumstances and the life that I led and the things that how I was as a child were the things that I wanted that I couldn't have and I had to have. Because we weren't a privileged family when we was growing up, and there was things. I did the very best with my parents. However, there was just, I wanted lucky bags. I wanted pogs. I wanted the big head cards, the football, the pro match. I wanted all that. And I couldn't just have one packet or anything when I bought them or pinched it, because that's what I got to do. I had to have the full box. So that to me was like the obsession, the obsession part of it, where I needed it. And then fire became a part of my life, and I just wanted fire, and that became part of an obsession. Now, addiction is the obsession and the compulsion. So, you get the obsession in your mind where you have to act on something, or not act on it really. It's all in the mind and all that. And it gets too much where you compulsively act. And that's basically what addiction is. So for me, around all that stuff, it's my whole life. My whole life. And then when I found drugs at 15, I had one ecstasy. And it wasn't enough. I had to have more. And because what ecstasy did for me, because of the childhood trauma and everything that I went through, it then soothed the pain, and I became the person that I thought I was. So addiction to me is something that in the beginning did its job. It was good. I enjoyed it. So now I didn't know I was an addict or anything like that, or addicted. And I certainly, at the end of my addiction of using drugs, I still didn't believe I was an addict. So I couldn't be an addict. I couldn't be addicted to this stuff because I was working. I was pulling in money. I was all this. And it's so convincing in a way where it's the only disease that will tell you haven't got a disease. And it will just keep grinding at you until it kills you. But along that way, it will take everything from you. So that's where addiction to me is a nightmare.
Yeah, great, really good. What's your name? What's your story?
I'm Ian Gower. My story is, I was born in Grimsby. I've got a mother and father, three older brothers. We had a dysfunctional family. They did the best they could. I'm not here to say anything bad about that. That's just how it was. It was violent. There was a violent home. My dad did the best he could with what he had and what he had learned. However, there was a lot of beatings that got dished out in that family home. Me being the youngest and the smallest, I used to get it from all angles. And I used to get beaten a lot. And for a small boy, getting that stuff, that hurts. I had an attachment to my mother. And to keep the family together and to keep the bills paid and all that, she had to work 2 jobs. Then that took her away from me as a small boy. That took that away. And what I've learned now from going through this program is that's where the abandonment issue started. I needed that, and I couldn't get it. And then when I was 5 years old, I was raped. I was abused by someone older than me. It happened. I'm not scared to talk about this. I've found a lot of freedom from it. But that happening to a 5-year-old boy, I never said a word of it because I was scared. I was scared I was going to get in trouble. And whenever I got in trouble before that, that's when I got a beating. So I didn't say anything. And I kept that in to me until I was 33. But moving on from that, I it's so hard to think right back there because my mind's telling me, and it does tell me what it wants to tell me right now. But all I can do is just go back to then as how I felt it was for me. But I did become distant. I become very naughty. I was still getting beatings. My brothers couldn't walk past me without hitting me. And I was frightened in the home that I lived. And I did everything to get out of that home throughout my childhood. Now, I'm not saying I had a bad childhood. I had a great childhood. When I was on the streets, causing trouble, setting fires, smashing windows, causing havoc for everyone, going in school, making myself centre of attention, like causing trouble and kicking off in a lesson. So the teacher was all on me. The classmates was all on me, because that attention is what I needed. Attention's attention to a child that's been had that abandonment issue, that's not getting that love that he so needed. And by this point of my life, when I was still in single figures, by this point in my life, while I was still in single figures, I just wanted that love, but I couldn't get it. So trouble was the only way forward for me. And I'd become so closed off. I didn't care. I had no respect. My parents couldn't control me. Teachers couldn't control me. I was just out of control. I was a troubled child with things going on in his undeveloped brain that have happened to him that he's too afraid to speak about because he would get in trouble. But he's okay causing trouble because it gave him that sense of power. That's how it was for me growing up. And then I got into my teenage years, all the schools kicked me out. I ended up going into this naughty school. And it was great because they kind of understood me. They had time for me. They spoke to me like a proper person, and I enjoyed that. And I came out of that school with qualifications. However, that's when the drugs started. And ecstasy was the first class A that I had. Now, me going back again through that life, I've never felt love. I've never felt love, real love, still to this day. The emotion that you get of love as a human, I don't feel it. I don't know what that feels like. I'm 38 years old. You see, I associated love when I had that first D with a chemical. Because I was sat down a subway in Grimsby and I can remember it. But it's a magical moment for me. It's probably the best moment ever in my life to this day. And I've had some good experiences. But I was sat down a subway with these lads who got me the E, and I was sat with them. Those were my friends. And we was there and I came up and I had this rush and the feeling and everything around it. I'm not promoting ecstasy right now, but this is how it was for me. And my mates was telling me to love me, and I really felt that. I really felt those words at that age, and I thought, yes, this is it. It was a weird, strange feeling, it's unexplainable. For the people that have taken ecstasy, they'll know what I'm on about. But for me personally, to go from this horrible child that was just closed off and just didn't care about anybody or anything like that, it was full of fear, definitely full of fear. And this is why you had to act like that. To have that drug, wow, what a changing feeling. And then I came down from it and I wanted more. I wanted more of that feeling, because when I come down from it, I was back into this reality, this cold, dark world, what it seemed at 15. So then I started chasing ecstasy. And music, I was big on music, that was an escape. And then ecstasy and music together, wow. See, I like dance music, and at the time I was listening to hardcore. It was great. I was listening to hard house. It was great. It just enhanced everything for me, this drug. And then I got into the rave scene, started raving. It was mega. And I got around with all these friends that took drugs like me, and we would just become real strong friends. And when we was high on drugs, alcohol, it is a drug anyway, and when we was doing all that, we was so solid and so close. And that was the life that I wanted. That was the life that I needed. And then when I wasn't on anything, that's when I felt uncomfortable. After that, I was 17 and I was with a girl. And I've slept with someone before that while I was drunk. And I lasted, like when we was having intercourse. And then I did it without being drunk. And she humiliated me because I ejaculated really quick. And and I thought, I can't have that, because it brought up a load of bad feelings, like a load of bit of trauma, like being belittled, how I was through my childhood. That's the only thing I can describe as what it was, and it really, yeah. And I said to myself, look, without the alcohol, you're nobody. You're nothing. With alcohol, look at the person that you are. And I can remember one time, I must have been about 17 again, and I was drinking a bottle of Frosty Jacks in my bedroom, and I felt this changing going on in me. And then I looked in the the bathroom mirror, and I said to myself, I can remember saying these words, all you need is this. All you need is this to be the person that you're supposed to be. See, at 17, I was convinced. I convinced myself that I had to have these substances in me to be someone. And when I was on any substance, I felt like I belonged. I felt like I was a part of everybody. I felt like I was accepted. I could accept myself while I was drunk or on ecstasy. They was the main drugs for me at the time. So why would I not want to be intoxicated? Why would I doubt? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I feel so sad now speaking about it, about this little boy, because that's who I was, this little boy that had to have that experience through his life, for him to have now be intoxicated and think that's life. Do you know, look at it, to have an ecstasy, to feel love. What's that all about? Do you know, and I'm not looking for sympathy or anything like that, or anything like that. That's how it was. But I look back on myself, and it makes me upset about it. But moving forward through all that, you know, I had the undeveloped mind, and then I started taking drugs at 15. So my mind's still not developed, and I'm adding all these chemicals. I'm abusing ecstasy, and I'm drinking a lot of cider, the not very good cider, you know, what's got no apples in it whatsoever, the Frosty Jacks, the White Storm, the Lightning, and all that gear. And I was powering that in me virtually daily, you know, to get that feeling of belonging. And then I ended up getting paranoid, seriously paranoid. Do you know, I thought people was looking at me. I thought people were staring at me down the street. I was so skinny and small as well. I was a small child, you know, and everybody was growing up around me, getting tall, going through that growth spurt, and I wasn't. And it got me really down, and I ended up getting sectioned. I ended up getting put in a mental institution because of it. Drugs were having this profound effect on me, but I couldn't blame the drugs. It was affecting me already at the age of 18. And then I ended up getting put on these psychotic drugs. But I was taking them while I was taking all the other drugs that I was on, because I couldn't stop. And then the organisation, the mental health organisation, says, look, we can diagnose you, but you need to get time clean. You need to stop everything that you're doing. But I couldn't, because I had so much reliance on it. That was my life. Intoxication was who I was. So, you know what? Why would any scared little boy who is nobody without, or what seemed like he was nobody without, do that? It don't make sense to me. Do you know what that did for me at the time was my solution, and it saved me really well. I can't knock it. I enjoy drugs. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't, because I had a really, really good time. You know, I was a raver. You know, going God's Kitchen all night, going to like festivals, proper dance festivals, with people that told me to love me. Do you know, on all these chemicals, escaping the pain of reality. Ace, love it. I will never say I never had a good time. The best moment in my entire life was my first E. Has to be. Do you know, it has to be, and I will always stand by that. Nothing's changed that since I've been clean. You know, there's been a close second, but that has to be the pinnacle point for me. But moving forward onto that, then I started going through my 20s, and you know, I was dysfunctional. I was messed up, but I had good friends, and I started working. I got a proper career. I started scaffolding and everything, but I couldn't tolerate people very well. I couldn't have authority. I couldn't have supervisors, bosses or anything coming down on me, going mad at me, shouting. See, me, this is a bit, not a secret, but I'm scared of people shouting. It gets my back up. It's like a trigger. It's like a trauma. When someone's shouting, it just takes me back. I'm scared of smashing glasses. Do you know, when I used to drop something when I was a child, you know, I used to get a good hiding. That's how crazy it was. So I'm scared of that. That's a trauma. But yeah, when I'm at work and everything and someone's getting angry and getting shouting, I get me back up and that gets me up. And then I used to kick off, but because I was triggered, I couldn't slow it down. I didn't know how to release it. I didn't know how to let it go. And it used to get me in a lot of trouble. It's cost me jobs and all that stuff. So I didn't do really well in my career. And also while I was doing that, I was still taking drugs. I was still getting on it virtually every night. But I found running. And then I started getting into running and I started to become a good runner. So what I was doing is I was having sessions. And then I was getting training for a race. But the thing is, when I look at that now, when I was running, I was getting that same chemical release as what 2 pints would give me. So I was still, that's what kind of it starts working out for me. It's the chemical release in my brain that I'm so seeking, that I so need, that feel good factor. Do you know, the dopamine, the serotonin, do you know, all that stuff that gives us that, yes, that's what I was seeking. But when I've done a race and all this, like, instead of running 8 miles and being obsessed with it, thinking I need to get another mile in so I can post it on social media, so I can make all this even better, why everybody liking my post, giving me that sense of, we like you, Ian, because I needed that from everybody else. I needed that fulfillment. I was a self-seeker. Still am. Still need that. Because I didn't get it as a child. That stuff has haunted me. It stayed with me my whole life. The trauma's trauma. You know, and I still need that love. But I'm too scared today now to get that love, but we'll get to that. So yeah, this is what I found, and I was running and I was obsessed with that. So when I did a race, I treated myself to a pint. Then I triggered that. And then I went on mad sessions. And now at this point, I'd stopped taking ecstasy and I turned to cocaine because I was working. And it was a rich man's drug, as they called it. You know, and I was earning enough money to feed a habit that I had. And I fitted in with everybody else that was doing it. You know, it just progressed. And when I was on that, I felt accepted. So I felt like I belonged. So all this, still the drugs, the belonging, it was doing it for me. And then I started to get near my 30s. And things started to take a turn. Things started to get messed up. You know, I couldn't hold a relationship. I would rather have been in a boozer than I would spending time with the partners that I had at the time. You know, this one girl that I was in a relationship with over a couple of years, I walked away because all I wanted to do was drink. And it was becoming a problem. You know, when I left there, and then I ended up getting with somebody else, and then I married that girl. But this girl didn't like how I drank, and she tried to control me drinking it. And then that's where I started getting deceitful. I started to lie about it. I started to cause arguments in the house just so I could go off on a 4-day bender. It was all in my head. It was all planned. You know, there was all reason. You know, at the time I didn't know that, but now I'm fully aware of it through the work that I've done. So moving forward with that part, you know, it started to get out of control, and I started to have the odd shake after sessions, the tremors, the DTs as we call it, you know, and I thought, nah, I just need some water. You know, I didn't take no notice of it. I couldn't have a problem. You know, I knew I was a big drinker, but I'd always been a big drinker. You know, I prided myself on that, you know, because I could keep going for days on end, and that was my ego. And then I used to like get jobs away, work away, just so I could drink every night. You know, manipulation, just so I could get that stuff. You know, I used to send money home, but just get wrecked every night because I was free. You know, I could do what I want. This is how manipulative I was. I used to be on a 10-hour job where you work 10 hours, but I used to tell the ex I was on a 12-hour so I could get a few pints in me As soon as I got back to my digs, then I used to go get a shower, go get laid in bed, FaceTime her, and I say, right, I've got to be up in the morning to go for a run. I'll just text you tomorrow. I used to put the phone down, leave it in my rooms, and go straight back to the boozer and took clothes in. Do you know how deceitful and all that was? But that deceitful started to become quite easy for me to do. But in a way, it led me on further of the path. Yeah. And yeah, we got married. And I thought marriage was going to stop me drinking because I knew there was a problem, but no way did I think I was an alcoholic. Do you know, she married someone and neither of us knew I was an alcoholic. And I messed up on the wedding night. You know, she said I could have a few whiskeys, but, you know, I did what I did all the time. Took it to the extreme. And I spent my first 4 days of marriage in my friend's kitchen, not knowing if I'm married or not. You know what? That's definitely a problem with drink. You know, who does that? Do you know, I live in a bit of guilt and shame around that. I've made an amends to this lady for that, but, you know, it don't go away. Just because I've made amends to that, you know, I have to look back on that as part of my life, you know, and I've made a few amends through the stuff that I've done throughout my life because I've been a horrible person, I've been a criminal, you know, all this time I've been intoxicated and I've just not cared. You know, I've cared for the people, my friends and all that lot, but all the other people that are just family, my mum and dad, do you know what I mean, what I put them through, disrespected them, you know, but yeah. After that, do you know, we had to split up, me and this lass, and then we got divorced and I went on a rampage. 6 months later, I ended up in recovery. I was dying, you know, I was so slim, I was this, that, the other, and it finally caught hold of me, and someone what we call 12-stepped me, and they brought me into Narcotics Anonymous. And that was a new playground for me. There was more people for me to try and impress. There was more people for me to try and win over, you know, to like me. You know, except this time I wasn't on drugs, so I was absolutely unmanageable. You know, I didn't know how to live because I wasn't intoxicated. I'm 33 years old at this point. And I've been taking drugs since I was 15. And I just didn't know how to live, how to communicate, how to be, or anything like that. And it all had to be learned. And the behaviours that I was doing in recovery, you know, I couldn't stay clean because I had such an attachment to drugs that I kept going back. Now, I didn't know what was going on, but like women were a thing for me. And I kept going back to women as a source of changing how I feel, to show me that intimacy, you know, that caressing, you know, what I had, and it was a need. I had to have that. But I used to promise these girls what I was like dating at the time, the world. But then the truth come out of how messed up I was, and then they dumped me, and that was rejection. And that's what I couldn't handle because I felt belittled, I felt embarrassed. And it brought all that stuff up from childhood, that trauma. You know, and what did I do? I had to drink. I had to get drugs. At this point, I was into crack cocaine. You know, and I had to just get absolutely obliterated and out of my mind to soothe myself, to escape that feeling of being belittled, rejected. You know, and eventually I ended up with a girl who enabled me to drink and all this lot, and then I started to go through symptoms of psychotic episodes, psychosis, and not knowing what was happening. I was going into this mad little world that seemed so real. And there was this one occasion where I was in about a 2-month relapse, and I was in my car, and I had this pain. I thought the world was against me outside this car. At the time, I was self-harming as well, and I needed to cause physical pain. But I needed to cause physical pain to my face. That's how it made me feel. It was so real. It's the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I'm nearly shaking now thinking about it because it just seems so real because I'm so deep in this interview now, what I'm speaking about it. I feel like I'm nearly there. But I was in the car and I opened the can up and I was scraping it down my face and it wouldn't cut the skin. And my key was snapped that turned it, and I used pliers to turn the car on. And something said in my head, use those pliers to pull your teeth out. And I ended up pulling my bottom set teeth out, the front bottom set with teeth. And then I snapped out of this psychosis and I had blood all down my top. I had blood around my mouth and I looked in the rearview mirror and I thought, what's going on here? What's happened? And then it hit me, what I'd just done. And I broke down. And I had a bottle of whiskey next to me. You know, I had a car full of empties all over, and I just started necking this whiskey because I needed blackout. I needed to go into blackout. And that's how it felt. And that's how it felt for a long time. I just needed blackout. And then, yeah, the next day, I planned to commit suicide. Yeah. The ambulance turned up and the police pulled me out of the car before I could actually get into it. Saved my life, basically, because it was happening, do you know. Sad, innit? I'm getting a bit emotional now. I don't know how to cry. I haven't cried since I was 13, by the way. I don't know how. Something won't let me do it. I want to, because it's something that's natural. But to me, in the life that I've lived, things aren't as natural to other people. Do you know, this is what addiction has done to me. This is what trauma's done to me as a human. Do you know, and I'm not a victim when I'm saying this. This is the reality. This is my reality. You know, this is the stuff I have to live with. Do you know, it's not hard to live with on a daily basis because now I'm in a place where I can manage. Do you know, but I had to then, at that point while I was in that car and then I got saved, I had to then act. I had to get clean. And then when me getting clean with that, things started to happen. My life started to get better because I had that burning desire, that gift of desperation, we call it, that I don't want anymore. I need to get clean. And with that, I got a diagnosis and I got put on medication. And then, lo and behold, I started to slow down. Things started to happen in my life. I started to change. So now with this diagnosis, medication, and staying clean, it enabled me to go through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, learn about this stuff which I'm talking about now. But there was one problem that happened to me at the time. You know, I was in recovery, and it was on what we do in this program is we don't take anything mind or mood altering. But this mood stabilizer I was on, people was telling me, like crackheads off the street that had just got clean, telling me I'm not clean because I'm taking a mood stabilizer, which was prescribed by a professional, and it's not addictive. So what did I do? I wanted to get clean. I come off my medication. Within 5 days, I relapsed because I just I changed. I did come off the medication suddenly, but it just happened suddenly. And then I went for one Guinness and one whiskey. And then 2 weeks later, I come around on my sofa shaking bad. 2 weeks of absolute carnage. You see, that's addiction for me now. I've crossed that invisible line. If I pick up, have one drink, I cannot stop. That's what it's got to now. Even now, I'm 3 years and 3 months in, clean from everything. And if I have one drink, I won't be able to stop. I can't tell you when I'm going to stop. I'm addicted. I am now physically dependent on drugs. Not right now. I've lost all that. And this is why on a daily basis I need not to use. But you know, at that time when I was going through all that and a diagnosis, the comeback entered my life. And they took me in. You know, it's a great organisation. And at the time there was people in there and it was just recovery based, and I needed that because I was a kid off the streets, a man off the streets. You know, I was unemployable at that point, and that was a safe place for me to go. It was really safe. It was somewhere for me to go. I had something to get up for and not twiddle my thumbs thinking, how am I going to stay clean today? Because I went there around like-minded people and I was taught how to paint. It sounds daft. You know, they're saying that everyone knows how to paint, but there's more to it than that. It taught me. But that, what I found in the painting at the time, stilled my fast, crazy thinking, my brain. And I found it very therapeutic. And I become attached to that, because without that, I don't know if I'd have been in the position what I'm in today, because that was a massive part of my recovery too. You know, and that coupled with the fellowships, I've used Alcoholics Anonymous, I've got to big that up. You know, and I'm a member of the fellowship Narcotics Anonymous, I've got to big that up. But I'm also part of the comeback team, you know, and the Great Escape, the place that we're sitting in now. And I offer my time to this place and the people of it freely. Because the people that helped me when I was first getting clean gave me that freely. So no one asked me for anything. All I wanted me to do was get clean and get well. So I owe my life to all three of those places, you know, which I'm a part of, which I'm a big part of. I do. And I stay into that. You know, I ain't tried, but I've pulled away a little bit with work and all this stuff, and I felt it. I felt this stuff going on. But as long as I stay involved and around those people who still help me today, massively. You know, I ain't cured. I never will be cured. I'll always have issues. I've still got the trauma. I'm always going to come up with something. Life on life terms is hard for someone like me still today. I'm still learning. Don't forget, I've lived that life, intoxicated, childhood, straight out of school onto drugs to the age of 33, and didn't have a clue. Couldn't even pay bills. Mental. But to where I'm at today, you know, what recovery has done for me, and taking drugs out of my life, and finally sorting my life out and doing something, which is the best thing I've done for myself. I run a house. I've got a job. I've got 2 vehicles. That's just external stuff. But internally, I'm free. Do you know, I live a life of freedom. I don't live a life controlled by a substance or anything like that. And that to me is enough. There's a whole lot more that's happened in my life, but just that freedom from drugs. I like who I am today. I'm not going to say I love who I am, but I definitely like who I am today. I'm not scared of mirrors. Do you know, I can look myself in the eye today and be proud of myself. I couldn't say that before. What a transformation this stuff has done for me, you know. So I'm going to wrap it up there. But thank you for letting me speak like this. You really helped me here to get that out. It's good. Thank you.
No worries. That's great. One last question. What advice would you give to anyone out there struggling with addiction that doesn't know what to do?
Well, what everybody says is reach out, you know. The hardest thing is to recognize it. Because like I said before, addiction is the only disease that tell you haven't got a disease. It's cunning, baffling, very patient, you know. That's what we say. It's the 3 things about it. But the cunningness of it would keep leading you on, telling you ain't got a problem. I've got your back. You stick with me. Do you know, have another line. Have another re. Get another drink in. Yeah, go and pull away from your mates. They're the noises that'll do, but you can't hear those noises because you just think that's reality. You just think that's that noise you just think that's your voice. So the first thing, you've got to recognize it. You've got to recognize it. And when you do, you know, this is it. If you think you have a problem, there's a possibility you have. Ask someone about it. Just go talk to them. No one's going to tell you to stop doing that you don't want to do, because you're going to do what you're going to do anyway. But hopefully, if you get an opportunity to listen to the whole of this, you know, I'm Ian Gower. Yeah. If you can find me, I'm from Grimsby. Put that in on Facebook search. Message me. I'll gladly give you my phone number and we can talk. And I'm not just the only one that's in recovery in this town or anywhere. There's loads of people that'll be willing to talk to you and see where you're at. So reach out. If you think you have a problem, you probably have.